Hello and welcome back. This is episode 3 of my mid-school life, and we're going to try something different. I'm actually going to try and do a bit of editing for this one. Ooh, posh. Okay, so today's bike is one that I've got very close to my heart. It's a 1997 Schwinn Powerglide. So I'm going to take you back a bit, and this one's got a lot of nostalgia in it for me. In 1996, I wasn't in a good place mentally. A lot of my friends had all grown up and got cars. I was really struggling with that. I also wasn't sleeping very well. So one night I turned on Channel 5, and sure enough, there was the 1996 X Games. I hadn't ridden a BMX in about 4 or 5 years. All of my friends had gone on to mountain bikes in that time, but I'd resisted. I didn't like the bloody things. So I'd always had a BMX. But yeah, for the 4 years I'd been very depressed, was struggling with some mental health issues. And then this popped up. So I started recording it, and I must have watched it until there was a hole in the tape. The next morning I started phoning around through the yellow pages trying to find a BMX bike, because back then that was what you had to do. And I found a shop in Croydon called Evans, and bought a Harrow shredder, and I absolutely hated it. What that did do was get me out, and I started working on my fitness and started riding and having fun on it. In that time I'd been up to the BMX shop and subscribed to the Ride BMX magazine, and then in one of those episodes I read a review of the 1997 Schwinn Powerglide, which was a black bike. It was about £220, very entry level, very cheap. But it had everything that you needed. 4 pegs, it was well made, it worked well, the brakes were good. So I got that and sold my shredder, and I absolutely loved that bike. It was one of my favourite BMX bikes ever. It's very heavy, but the geometry was great. It's got a nice tall standover. It's not too long. It was just a great all-around bike, and I rode it for about 2 years. In that time I took it up to the bike shop and I had it painted in Hubba Bubba metallic pink, which was a bit of a statement, but then that's me all over. So I didn't do that many upgrades to it. I did put a set of new old stock gold maxi cross 3-piece cranks on it from the 1980s that I got from Cycle Sport in Leicester for 25 quid with the bottom bracket. Oh, I wish I had a time machine. I could have made a bloody fortune. Anyway, yeah, I rode that around. I put Hydroglide decals on it in gold. I managed to find a set, and yeah, then as things progressed I got a job in that bike shop and ended up on a standard STA, but that's for another day. So I've been hunting for one of these frames since about 2012 when I started collecting, and they're very difficult to find because at the time Schwinn were an unknown. They'd just come back into BMX after a hiatus. Nobody knew anything much about them. I mean, they've been around for 1,000 years, Schwinn, but you know, it was very much who are they sort of thing. The year after they switched to the Matic models, so they discontinued the Powerglide and the Hydroglide, and they went to the Powermatic and the Hydromatic and the Supermatic, and the rest is history. They picked up Jay Miron, Andrew Farris, you name it. So a lot of people say to me, well, you know, you just copied Andy Farris. Well, I didn't, because I did it first. And I know that there's no way that he could have ever seen my bike. But there you go, he had a pink one. Wasn't a Powerglide though, it was a little bit better than that, but those ones are rocking all shit. So it took me 2 weeks to paint this. I went a little bit crazy. It's had a multiple stage finish on it. I started off with some white primer. I then put down some Bazooka Joe pink base by Montana Paint. which needed severe flattening because it comes out like powder. So there was about 5 coats of pink, and many pink hand jobs in the middle of that, sanding it back. I then put down a load of ghost stripes and some ghost flames, which you can't see in the pictures because the sunlight isn't the greatest yet, but there you go, I know it's there, and you can sort of see it on the wishbone at the back. And yeah, custom decals, made those myself. Not trying to fool anyone, hence why I've put my name on there and not Hydroglide or Powerglide or whatever. It was a very cheap build to do. The frame cost me 12 quid on eBay, and thankfully the seller sent it out to me. It was covered in concrete and God knows what else. It had obviously sat in a shed for a very long time. The thing that wound me up the most about that bike, and it was the only reason I got rid of it, was the 1-inch quill stem. That fucking thing used to come loose, it used to twist, and there wasn't much you could do about it then, especially if you were on a budget. So this one, the fork is by a company called Firecloud, and it's called a Sprint fork, and it was 20 quid. And it's bloody lovely. It looks just like the Hydroglide fork, but the critical part is, of course, it's threadless. So I got a new old stock 1-inch A headset on there. It's an original one. I've got a Stay Strong 1-inch clamp-on race stem, because obviously you're not sport for choice when it comes to 1-inch clamp-on stems. It's either Hoffman or not much else. I've got some 1990s V-bars. I don't know who made those, but they're nice 90s chrome. They just suited the build down to the ground. They were about 25 quid. Some pink Schwinn grips. I think they're meant for a mountain bike, but whatever, they're Schwinn and they're pink and they were cheap. A set of jet levers from Source BMX in polished with some lever johnnies on in pink. For the cranks, I found a set of Schwinn cruiser cranks for about £20 and absolutely perfect. They look just like the Maxis, and they were cheap, and that was the whole ethos of this build, was doing it on the cheap. You will scorn me a little bit in a minute when I tell you what wheels are on it, if you haven't guessed already. The seat post is Dragonfly, that was a tenner from 70s BMX on eBay. The seat again is a Velo gripper. This time I've used pink leather. It's genuine leather hide and recovered that. It's got a couple of shims in there because the frame's a funny size, and then of course it's a 22.2 post. It's got a gusset seat clamp. Got a bit carried away on the rear brake. That's a Fly CNC brake. And on the front we've got a Light Pro CNC short V brake, which I was a little bit apprehensive about because V-brakes are a bit crap, but I didn't realise that if you set them up without a V-brake lever, you get rid of all the sponginess, and what you end up with is a Winchester rifle that could smash anyone's teeth out. It's absolutely lethal. It's the kind of brake that you get your mates to test for you. Here, have a go at this, smack. Yeah, the wheels, like I say, I got a bit carried away at the end because it only cost me about 150 quid for everything else. It was by far and away, even with those sealed Shimano DX pedals that are like the modern recreation of the 80s ones, and even all the little rubbity bolts on, like the things on the end of the crank arms and all that, it was still like really cheap. So I managed to pick up a set of limited edition G Sport rims. The guy had them repowdered because he'd ridden them and never rebuilt them. So they're Dayglow pink. The rear one is a rib cage and the front is a roll cage. The front hub's a profile Madeira that I picked up in the sale. It uses the female volcano bolts. The rear one is a We the People 36 hole new old stock 90s hub. That was cheap. Got them built up. They owe me about £160, which for a set of G Sports is ridiculous. Tyres are V Rubber Speedsters 1.65s. Picked those up on sale for a tenner each. They're Kevlar folding tyres. So all in all, the bike owes me less than £300, which is what I like. Obviously, I'll never get back the 2 weeks it took me to do that custom paint job, but who cares? I love it. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the episode and a little trip down memory lane. There will be more to come soon, and you all take care now. Signing out. Bye-bye.